Hey ladies, welcome to the Grit, Growth, Grace podcast. If we haven't met, my name is Anne Marie. I'm wife to James and mom to 4 beautiful kids, plus 1 miscarried baby, from 9 months up to 8 years. My hope is to help other women experience the postpartum period, all the way up through the first year of baby's life, as a time of grit, growth, and grace.
This is episode 29. Hey lady, how are you? It has been about a month since I recorded last, and it has been a wild time. And even though it doesn't exactly encapsulate everything that's happened in the last month, I am recording right now at 8:49 at night in my pajamas with my little crest whitening strips in, which is why if I sound a little funny, it's partially that, but it's also partially because I'm getting over being ill. And I didn't plan to record for a couple of weeks because it was Christmas and then it was New Year's, which is great. But then the last week has been a little less planned because we have had various stages and ages of illness in the household. So hopefully we're moving past that. Hopefully you are too, if you are listening to this relatively close to real time and recording and it's just that time of year. I saw a really funny Holderness family video on YouTube that talked about as if they were doing like a planning for the year, and January just got dumped on with like all of the terrible things, and I thought, yep, check. I mean, especially illness, but like other stuff too. I can't remember what everything was, but the one that stuck most in my head was the illness because it's most relevant to us right now. But I'm back, so happy to talk to you again. I had 2 guest episodes that I released most recently, and I've just been thinking more and more of more and more things that I really want you to hear about that are related to postpartum, but that frankly I may not have a lot of experience with or exposure to. So you are actually going to hear a fair amount more of guest episodes in the next couple of weeks or episodes. I'm not sure, just like as they come in from the women who are sharing them so graciously with me, I will get them out to you. So like for instance, next week's going to be a postpartum preeclampsia story, which you're really going to love because it's succinct, but it's so helpful at explaining like this is what you look for and this is what you would need to tell the doctor if you experience. Because most people, if they've heard of preeclampsia at all, think about, oh, well, that's what happens when you're pregnant. And the treatment for it is to deliver the baby. Well, what about when you get it afterwards? Then the baby's already out. So all of that simply to say there will be more guest episodes coming. I'm also happy to share that the episodes are now available on YouTube through my @Postpartum on Purpose account. So I'll put that in the show description, show notes as well. But what I wanted to talk to you about very briefly today is actually sort of repurposed material from an interview that I did several months back for a story for my work about direct primary care doctors. And this is just something that I was writing an article actually on postpartum depression and how we can drive down postpartum depression rates. And I was reading peripherally maybe, or I had heard about it recently about direct primary care doctors because somebody that I knew said that she was starting to work with one. And all that I really understood about them was that they didn't work with insurance, but that you could have direct access to your doctor. Like no nurses, no receptionists, just like you and them, which I thought was pretty fascinating. So let me pull out my notes here and let's talk briefly about why you might want to look into working with one yourself. Okay, so direct primary care doctors will usually operate out of an office space, but it might be one that's rented. It may or may not be one that they own. And because they don't work with insurance, and there's also going to be a slightly more limited range of what they're able to do in terms of like who they're going to take care of. Both those things allow them to have a lot more cost transparency and lower costs in general. So they work differently from your regular primary care doctor because you will probably pay a monthly fee. It's like a membership or almost like a subscription. So if you pay, I don't know, $35 or whatever a month for your internet, that's probably actually very low. That's what we pay for our internet, but we have super basic internet. Anyhow, so whatever the monthly fee is that you pay, it's like that with direct primary care doctors as well. It's a little bit different from concierge medicine, if you've ever heard of that, because the doctor that I was interviewing explained it to me that with that one, like you get direct access to the doctor's cell phone number. It's a little bit more, it is a little bit more concierge type care. But with that one, you also may be paying an annual fee, whereas with direct primary care doctors, you're just going to pay a monthly fee. And you will probably pay a fee per person. Pay a fee, yeah. Okay, per person, but then you might have smaller add-on costs for kids and usually a max, like for the whole family. So she gave me an example of if she takes care of a family of 8, the max they're going to pay for that family will be $300 a month. So what they are able to do would be all of your preventative checks like pap smears, vaccines, well child exams, basic sore throats, cough, runny noses, like all the things you would go to your doctor for regularly that are one-time things or checkups, all those things they can do. And they are able to be very upfront about the costs of everything. So that can be really nice too. I know that my husband and I, this is kind of a tangent, but my husband and I, he went to an ortho walk-in clinic in August for plantar fasciitis, and we thought nothing of it, right? It's like a 10-minute visit with a physician's assistant. And the bill that he got for it was $335. $335. So with direct primary care medicine, you're not paying an office visit fee. As many visits as you need to have in that month, which might be none, it might be 4, whatever amount that is, you have paid a monthly fee that covers all of those. And then things that are extra that you might need would be on top of that, but you will know in advance what those costs are. The thing that was hard about the doctor's visit too is as I called the clinic and just said like, hey, this seems really high. Could you reevaluate it? And also, can you tell me what the cost is that gets billed to insurance or what it would be for cash pay? Because we might just do that, honestly, if it's a lot cheaper. And they said, oh, well, we can't tell you. I was like, what do you mean you can't tell me? I'm like, well, we don't know how much the cost of an office visit is going to be. It's like, well, who does? If you don't know how much it's going to be, who does know? So that was actually really frustrating for me because technically I could have done cash pay, but I would have had no way of knowing if that would have made sense or not because I would have no comparison between, well, if you do cash pay and don't run it through insurance, meaning that it doesn't apply to your deductible, if, for example, that cost had been $100 versus the $335 that was being run through my insurance, honestly, I would have just done the $100 and not worried about it applying towards the deductible or not, or at a pocket max once you hit the deductible. But because they lacked transparency, I had no way of knowing. And so that was really frustrating for me. So one thing I think that's really a plus with direct primary care medicine is you know in advance what everything costs. Now, the doctor that I spoke to, in the first couple years of her practice, she was entirely house calls based, meaning she did not have a physical office space for you to go to. She was coming to you. And I thought that was kind of fascinating, but she said that even things like vaccines, if she was going to come and give vaccines to you, she could get them in a cooler from the pharmacy and bring them to you. And I thought, oh, well, that's really interesting. She said one thing she wasn't able to do in home would have been pap smears. But as long as your doctor has an office space of some kind, that should be something you could get done in office. So I like the cost transparency thing a lot. Something else I really liked was that she did house calls, but doctors who have an office space and don't generally do house calls often will specifically do them for postpartum visits for babies. Well, I guess that'd be a newborn visit actually, because it's not technically for you, it's for the baby. But I've heard several doctors, herself included now, and one actually that's local to my area, who will do the first 2 checks, I think. They will come to you within 30 miles, I think, of their office. If you're in a 30-mile radius, they will come to you. And I thought, wow, wouldn't that be so nice with a brand new baby, especially having older children, which I do, right? If I didn't have to go anywhere. Because, the first visit is like 2 days later, which is great. That's a good time to go. So you can make sure everything's good. But wouldn't it be so nice if you didn't have to figure out childcare for the other kids, strap the baby in the car seat and take them with you, if you just had that doctor come into your house and come to you? Now, I am planning to have a doula with this baby, the one that's coming in June. And so she will come into the house to do kind of a postpartum well check, which of course is separate from the baby. That's specifically for me. But she's coming to me, and I'm really looking forward to that. I think she's going to come twice, actually. But wouldn't it be nice to have somebody come into your house and just look at you, look at the baby? The doctor that I spoke to for the interview said it's actually really helpful for her to see a mom and baby in the home environment because it's helped her several times to pick up on cases of postpartum depression that might have been missed, especially if, the mom had not been seen, wasn't going to be seen until 6 weeks postpartum, whereas she's seeing that mom in the context of the visit for her baby just a couple of days after the baby's born. So I thought that was really neat, the concept or the tie between, yes, the cost transparency, but also the ability to have house visits really quickly after the baby's born, and for that doctor to see both you and your baby and how you're interacting in your home environment. There's one other thing I thought was really helpful context because it was just information I had not ever had previously. And part of how your direct primary care doctor can give you such personalized care is because they take so many less patients than your primary care doctor would, who works in a traditional office with a bunch of other doctors and runs their insurance and that sort of thing. So she told me that a standard practice, a full-time doctor, is going to have a panel of 2,000 to 3,000 patients. 2,000 to 3,000 patients if they're working full-time. Whereas she will have a panel of 500 to 600 if she is working full-time in direct primary care. And the doctor I was speaking to is part-time, so she had less than that. But 500 to 600 patients is still mind-blowing to me. But the fact that it is 1/4 to 1/5 of what a conventional doctor would have, I think speaks to the power of how much closer you get in terms of your ability to interact with them, right? Because if they are needing, rightfully so, to have gatekeepers between 2,000 or 3,000 people and one doctor, you're going to have a lot better odds, I think, of getting somebody who's very intimately familiar with your case if you have those lower patient loads. So there's so much that we could talk about in relation to direct primary care doctors, but my point here isn't to be comprehensive and a super broad scope. It's just really to put the bug in your ear to say, like, hey, if this is something that intrigues you at all, maybe just Google direct primary care doctor in my area. There are more of them actually in the United States than you might think, about 1,300 practices. So of course there can be places where there aren't any, but just in my local area, like I said, there's one within 30 miles of me, and I live in the middle central Illinois. So yeah, if it intrigues you at all, I would just say maybe look into it. And if not, and you want to keep working with your doctor, like, that's great. If you have a great relationship with whomever it is that's already caring for you, maybe it's not relevant for you. But if it's something you've been thinking about or that interests you, I would definitely recommend you look it up. There's a website, DPC for Direct Primary Care, frontier.net, that has a provider directory. But yeah, you can also just Google it. And what's the other thing I was thinking of with that? Oh, she did point out that, yes, it's still good to have insurance, right? If you have something catastrophic that happens, if you need hospitalization for a long period of time, some type of surgery, specialist care. For those reasons, she was not poo-pooing insurance, but she was simply saying if you're a relatively healthy young person, then it might make sense for you to do direct primary care as an adjunct to that for the cases of things that are preventative or just maintenance and not super complex. So that's everything on the topic for today. Like I said, next week we're going to be talking, my friend Rebecca is going to be sharing with us her experience of postpartum preeclampsia. Until then, if you want to find me on YouTube, now you can, at Postpartum on Purpose. Otherwise, the website is postpartumonpurpose.com if you want to get signed up for emails. I did decide to change the frequency of those to just once a month because, let's be frank, we all get plenty of emails, and there's nothing burning that I need to communicate to you every single week when there's a new episode. So the frequency on those is going to change to once a month for you and for me both. And I hope you have a great rest of your week. Till then, bye.